I just want to thank Elon for his time as special government employee. Can you imagine? They called him an employee, but it's a special government employee, and for coming and helping us. And he really has changed the mindset of a lot of people. A lot of people thought, you know, maybe we'll cut 1% or 2% or 3%. Then they said, wow, we can cut a lot more than that. And we're going to do it very surgically. We're going to continue on the march. We're making America great again.
Mr. Musk, a question for Elon.
Yeah, please.
You said just now that you look forward to being a friend and advisor to the president. So do you expect to continue advising the president and DOGE informally, or are you going to sort of shift your focus entirely to your companies?
Well, I expect to continue to provide advice whenever the president would like advice.
I hope so.
I mean, yeah, I expect to remain a friend and an advisor, and certainly if there's anything the president wants me to do, I'm at the president's service.
Mr. Musk, on DOGE, you said that there was $1 trillion promise for cuts from DOGE.
Yes, I think we do expect over time to achieve the $1 trillion.
But what have you found in your time here was the biggest roadblock to getting those cuts? Was it the cabinet, or was it Congress, or something else? What was the biggest roadblock from your work?
It's mostly just a lot of hard work. It's really not any one person or Congress. It's going through really millions of line items and saying just each one of them makes sense or does not make sense. Obviously, at times when you cut expenses, those who are receiving the money, whether they're receiving that money legitimately or not, they do complain. And you're not going to hear someone confessing that they received money inappropriately. Never. They're going to always say that they received money appropriately for an important cause. Naturally, that's what you'd expect. So we just have to. It's just a lot of work going through the vast expenses of the federal government and just really asking questions. What's this money for? Are you sure it's actually being used well? Many times we can't even find anyone who defends it. So for a lot of the expenses, there is actually no defender at all. And then we have to just work through the process of stopping the spending, where there's often literally no defender. Nobody even knows why the money's being spent. It's truly absurd. I mean, we find situations where there are millions of software licenses with 0 people using them. 0. Exactly. This is the quizzical expression. You're like, surely, if there's millions of software licenses, someone should be using them. No, and then we've got to go through the process of saying, okay, look, if no one's using the software, we need to terminate this software license agreement. That's everywhere in the government, by the way.
Mr. Musk, what do you think would be easier, colonizing Mars or making the government efficient?
It's a tough call, but I think colonizing Mars and making life multiplanetary is harder. And as I said, we do expect to achieve over time the $1 trillion of savings. We can't do it in like a few months, but if you say by I think the official end of DOGE, which the president may choose to extend, is the middle of next year. If you say by the middle of next year, with the support of the president and Congress, could we achieve $1 trillion of savings? I think so. We're on track to do so.
Do you have faith that Congress is going to
Go ahead.
Mr. President, you had mentioned earlier in the week that DOGE had become a whipping boy, and as the president mentioned, you went through a lot to go through this process.
Yes.
Was it worth it for you, and what would you change?
Yes, so what we found was happening was that if there were any cuts anywhere, then people would assume that was done by DOGE. And so we became like essentially the DOGE boogeyman, where if any cut anywhere would be ascribed to DOGE. A friend of mine's daughter, who's at law school at Georgetown, thought that DOGE had cut the Senate, the internships the legal internships for the Senate, and we have nothing to do with that. So if they have been cut, it's not to do with us, just as an example. So, it just became a bit ridiculous where any cut anywhere was somehow DOGE, and including things that made no sense, and we would agree made no sense. There are many things that occur in the government because it's the banal evil of bureaucracy. It's sort of the frankly largely uncaring nature of bureaucracy. It's as the great Milton Friedman said, money is spent most poorly when it is someone else's money being spent on people you don't know. And that's how federal spending is. And then you can't really even blame the individuals, because the way the government works is complaint minimization. So when you do try to, when someone within the government tries to stop that money being spent, there's usually someone that complains. And then their manager will say, it's not worth the trouble. Just pay it anyway. That happens over and over again.
So was it worth it?
I think it was an important thing. I think it was a necessary thing, and I think it will have a good effect in the future.
Thank you, President.
We're not talking about undocumented immigrants, and we certainly are not talking about anointing an unelected, naturalized citizen, not born here in America, citizen who's a billionaire, to be able to march in with federal marshals, even at the direction, and to literally threaten people out of their seats to access our information. So now, if this is not a crime that has been committed, which is what I think it is, then we should have Mr. Musk sitting there explaining to us how going through our Social Security information, our taxpayer information, is going to rid us of the problem of trans people. How it's going to solve, how it's going to reconcile, you know, the majority party's concerned about diversity, equity, and inclusion. You know, what's the plan for excluding people through going through our personal information? It's a non sequitur. And I would yield the last 55 seconds to my good friend, Mr. Larson.
Mr. Larson is recognized.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. And let me say, having a security subcommittee and now being the ranking member, I get upset because of what's happening to the American people. These are good and decent people on both sides of the aisle. But fundamentally, you're telling me that there is no obligation to have the man who's been placed in charge of finding $2 trillion in cuts, who has said publicly on more than one occasion that yes, 70% of the budget is Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and defense, and that's what we're going after. Only one of those areas has a trust fund of $2,700,000.
Gentleman's time has expired.
I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I now recognize Mr. Kelly to strike the last word.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to yield my time to Mr. Smucker.
Mr. Smucker is recognized.
Just like to make a point in regards to access to taxpayer information. I would assume that every employee of the IRS has access to taxpayer information. I would assume, particularly those who are auditing accounts, are going to have access to some taxpayer information. And I just want to remind folks listening that the Democrats just last year were advocating to hire tens of thousands more, maybe as many as 80,000 additional auditors, or at least people in the IRS, all of who have had access to taxpayer information. We're talking maybe 100 people here who have potential access to taxpayer information.
Will the gentleman yield?
No. And I want to remind one other thing. There was a leak of taxpayer information, a massive leak. And we're learning that may have been 450,000 taxpayers' information or more. And I didn't hear a lot of outrage from Democrats because it matched their political narrative. That, you know, it was the taxpayer information of some of the highest income earners. And I heard a lot of Democrats celebrating, maybe not here, But a lot of Democrats across the country celebrated that an independent contractor who did have access to taxpayer information released that information to the American public. Where was the outrage we're hearing today then? Where was the outrage then? I yield back. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. Mr. Boyle is recognized to strike the last word.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I would encourage everyone, not just the members of this committee, but everyone who is watching and listening to read this resolution. It'll only take you a couple minutes. It's just 2 pages. This is about as straightforward a resolution as it gets. I honestly don't understand why anyone would vote against this. It is providing all of us necessary information about what exactly has been accessed. That's important information if you care about privacy, if you care about security, and frankly, I would think that if those who are involved with Mr. Musk's effort are proud of the work they're doing, I would think they would want this information to be out. Why wouldn't we want to give taxpayers and all the American people transparency? Why wouldn't we want a full airing of exactly what has been accessed? The logs, the documents, our private information. I'll save any comments about Social Security until later when we're on that resolution, but specifically in Treasury, they have access to our Social Security numbers, date of birth, home address, our full employment history, salary. If some 21-year-old frat bro working for Elon Musk has access to that, I would rather like to know it. I think the folks who I represent, 765,000 of them in the city of Philadelphia, absolutely want to know who is seeing their most private data and most private information. I think that that transcends whether one is a Democrat, Republican, independent, voter, or non-voter. I think, frankly, it is just common sense. And at the very least, this is something that all of us as fellow Americans should be able to vote and provide that level of transparency to the American people. And those who don't want to provide that level of transparency, it raises questions. Why don't they want that transparency? Now, I have a few further things I could say, but I want to yield to my good friend and colleague, Mr. Doggett of Texas, the 2.5 minutes remaining.
Well, thank you very much. We've heard a lot of huffing and puffing. We've heard distraction to foreign aid and many other issues, but not one of the Republicans who have challenged this resolution have given us any reason, any explanation as to why Musk needs every American's taxpayer data, their banking, their Social Security records, and who knows what else. These federal databases that the Musketeers have sought access to even contain sensitive information on child custodial arrangements that are used in administering the child tax credit. And so while tax season is underway, American taxpayers particularly deserve some answers. And I've been getting calls from people in Austin expressing concern and suggesting that they want to delay the filing of their tax return this year because they're not sure that they want an unelected billionaire going through it and invading their privacy on some illegitimate fishing expedition. A number of these constituents have questioned whether they can be sure that their information is safe. Some are holding off on filing, and in fact, they're not alone, because so far this tax filing season, about 2 million fewer Americans have filed their taxes compared to the same period last year. The young genius hackers that Musk hired as Musketeers had their own website hacked last month, raising questions about their ability to protect this data. I'm particularly pleased that Mr. Smucker mentioned Mr. Nixon. You know, we have had a previous criminal in the White House, and his name was Richard Nixon. And because of his lawlessness, this Congress reacted, finally, belatedly, to the Watergate events. And one of the things that Congress did, because a lawless Nixon administration attempted to weaponize the IRS against its opponents, was to pass a new law. And it's that new law that's being disregarded. It required that taxpayer data be treated as strictly confidential, not subject to inspection or disclosure, except in the very most limited circumstances. A penalty of 5 years in federal prison could apply. And the Congress also passed the Privacy Act of 1974, both in reaction to a lawless president. Now we have lawless invasion of those records again. And it's incumbent on this committee to fulfill its responsibilities rather than to yield all of its power to Musk and Trump.
Gentleman's time has expired. I now recognize Mr. Byer to strike the last word.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I move to strike the last word.
Gentleman's recognized.
The resolution of inquiry is simple. Support it, and you honor the transparency Elon Musk promised us. Oppose it, and you believe that the activity Elon Musk is conducting should remain hidden from the American public. The activity where he and his team of special government employees gain access to sensitive databases. This is one of the concerns I'm hearing in an uproar from my constituents, including conservatives and Republicans. There's absolutely no reason DOGE should be trying to access Treasury payment systems and confidential taxpayer information without permission, without approval from the American public and Congress. And I'm deeply concerned that this conduct is breaking many laws that Congress has put in place. I led an investigation earlier this week with my colleagues Jamie Raskin and Maxwell Frost to the Office of Government Ethics, inquiring about the potential criminal exposure of the volunteers and the employees of DOGE, to ensure that those individuals know that their ethical and legal responsibilities under the law, particularly conflicts of interest. We know that the statute of limitations is up to 5 years, so that's past the length of this administration. And violations can lead to criminal penalties of up to 5 years in prison with additional financial penalties. And I'm deeply concerned that these violations are happening left and right. And those fears could be assuaged with the transparency that has been promised to us. And by the way, who is doing it? Has Marco Elez been rehired to continue working on Treasury payments? You can't tell me that a government efficiency requires self-described racists access to government's most private information. I urge everyone to support this resolution and provide much-needed transparency into why and how Musk has sought Treasury payment information in America's sensitive data. If no laws have been broken, there's nothing to hide. And the defining feature of this 119th Congress has been his abdication of responsibility, running in fear from our constitutional authority on trade, on appropriations, on national security. My number one question for my constituents is, when will your Republican colleagues step up and do their jobs? We should not continue that today. And Mr. Chairman, I yield the balance of my time to Congressman Doggett.
To the American people, I want you to hear this. Today, we are voting for transparency in government. There is only one person who's unelected and a bureaucrat who is causing havoc throughout the government. That is Elon Musk and his hackers. Now, my constituents need and want to know who accessed their data and for what purpose. I want you to know that this inquiry specifically states that within 14 days, the President provide and direct to the Department of the Treasury, to the House of Representatives, all communications related to the access to or the use of the Treasury payment system by DOGE, Elon Musk, or any member of his team. It also calls for the access to or use of confidential tax returns or tax return information by DOGE, Elon Musk, or a member of his team, and any screenshots taken of the data or records in the Treasury payment system by DOGE, Elon Musk, or a member of his team. This is common sense. This resolution of inquiry is simple. We are doing our duty as elected members of Congress. I don't work for Elon Musk, and he wasn't elected to do anything on behalf of the American people. So I'm asking for simple information, information that should be shared with Congress. Now, to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, I want to work with you on government efficiency. There's several of you that we are actually in those efforts involved with. I want to be able to identify ways to make government work for the working people of this country. But there's a way to do it, and this is not it. Chaos only breeds further chaos, and my constituents are scared, they're worried, they're concerned about their personal information being used by Elon Musk and his hackers. From Pahrump to Mesquite, my office has received calls from constituents concerned about their information being stolen, and they have a right to know by whom and for what purpose. Sunshine is the best disinfectant. My constituents deserve to know why an unelected bureaucrat, Elon Musk, who is the richest person in the world, and his hackers are illegally accessing tax data, Social Security information, bank information. Why do they have it, and what is the purpose? That is the purpose of this inquiry. I am defending the rights of my constituents to know what has been accessed, by whom, and for what purpose. I don't understand, for the life of me, how my colleagues on the other side would not support this resolution. I'm here to defend my constituents. That's what I was elected to do. Elon Musk, you were elected to do absolutely nothing. Get your grubby hands off of the data of the people of America and the information that they're entitled to remain confidential. With that, I yield back.
Ms. Van Dyne.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Democrats keep criticizing Republicans for not bringing Elon Musk as a witness to speak about DOGE's work. If my Democrat colleagues want to bring Mr. Musk in for a witness so badly, why don't they invite him to appear as a witness? Democrats are allowed to invite anyone as a witness who can answer their questions about DOGE. Has anybody actually invited him? Okay, we have not seen any of that. During the Oversight Subcommittee's hearing on February 11th, Democrats invited Nina Olson as a witness. You had an opportunity. You chose Nina Olson as a witness. And you asked her several questions about DOGE having access to taxpayer information. Republicans invited Christine Kochelek, a managing director for a financial management insurance team at GAO's office. She was there specifically for the purpose of answering questions related to access to Treasury's payment systems. And when I asked her directly, has any proof been shown about these threats? You know what she said? None. No. And yet we continue to hear all of these unsubstantiated charges being thrown out, even though my colleagues know they're not correct. They're complete lies. Democrats are always able to invite whoever they want for a witness hearing. They just haven't done it. And Democrats have expressed outrage over the access to taxpayer information that DOGE employees have. First off, a few weeks ago, the Treasury Department and the White House signed a memorandum of understanding that prohibits DOGE from accessing personal taxpayer data. They know this, and yet we've spent over an hour and 45 minutes listening to charges that they know again are lies. Second, the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration has released data on just how many individuals have already had access to sensitive information within the IRS. As of July 2023, over 91,000 business entitlement access request system users, 91,000, including 5,000 contractors, had access to at least one sensitive IRS system. Where's the outrage? Why are we just now hearing about this? All these unelected bureaucrats that have access to sensitive information, including 5,000 contractors, you're saying shouldn't. And yet, because Elon Musk has unmasked all of this waste, fraud, and abuse, now you're bringing it up. Even worse, TIJTA found that over a dozen contractors with unfavorable background investigations retained their access to at least one sensitive IRS system because the IRS did not take action to suspend or disable the contractors from the IRS system as required. Where was the outrage then? So if Democrats were serious about protecting taxpayer information, they would have raised concerns about this report and articles that ProPublica and the New York Times published using illegally obtained taxpayer information to publish stories attacking President Trump and other Americans who had their data stolen. Instead of raising concerns then, Democrats chose to weaponize the disclosure of taxpayer information, including President Trump's, to attack him and other Americans for political gain. So stop with the gaslighting and protecting the waste, fraud, and abuse that is being uncovered, and stand up for your constituents and protect their financial futures. With that, I yield.
Last November, the American people overwhelmingly rejected the Biden administration's efforts to put Washington and its bureaucrats ahead of everyday Americans. From canceling appointments for more than 7,500 Americans to give Social Security Administration employees an afternoon off, to signing a midnight agreement to lock in telework with SSA's largest union. Biden's Social Security Commissioner did everything he could to boost bureaucrats at the expense of the American people, all in the midst of a customer service crisis that saw the highest initial disability backlog and some of the highest customer service wait times in the SSA's almost 90-year history. That was before DOGE. This was the Biden administration. In contrast, President Trump promised to increase the efficiency and accountability of Washington's entrenched bureaucracy. The president made no secret about how he was going to accomplish that by tasking the Department of Government Efficiency to aggressively seek out inefficiencies in agencies and places where services could be better streamlined for the American public in order to get a faster, more responsive government for their needs. It is a fact that waste and fraud exist at the SSA. And in the end, that hurts the Americans seeking help from that agency. In August of 2024, the SSA's Office of the Inspector General found $72 billion in improper payments by the agency between 2015 and 2022. President Trump knows that protecting Social Security includes rooting out fraud and waste to ensure that the right benefit is paid to the right person at the right time. This should be something everyone supports. However, some Democrats would prefer to obstruct these efforts to score political points. Fortunately, not only has the SSA been transparent with both Congress and the public with its service delivery data and the changes being made to shift the SSA from an agency that uses decades-old business practices to one that can provide modern, quality service to the public, but one of the first public statements of President Trump's new acting commissioner was to confirm that DOGE personnel cannot make changes to agency systems, to commit to abide by court rulings related to DOGE's access, and to refer DOGE personnel for prosecution if they violate the law. The same laws that protect the American people's data from misuse by the SSA's tens of thousands of other employees. Seniors are already seeing the benefit of doing things differently. Beneficiaries affected by WEP and GPO are getting the back payments mandated by the Social Security Fairness Act faster than expected. Originally, the Social Security Administration estimated it would take 1,000 work hours to send out back payments. In a letter to Social Security, Chairman Ron Estes and myself wrote to SSA, and I quote, "We estimate that it will take about 1,000 work hours to process the actions required under the new law for the approximate 3.2 million affected beneficiaries. Our initial analysis indicates that much of the work will need to be done manually on a case-by-case basis. Since that letter from SSA was sent in January, the Trump administration's embrace of automation and technology has made a night and day difference for those affected seniors. Under President Trump, the SSA has already sent more than 71% of all back payments to the 3.2 million affected beneficiaries. This is how the agency should work. Not wait 1,000 man-hours to do 3.2 million cases hand by hand, but automation to deliver for the American people, and President Trump, in fact, has delivered that in 7 weeks. 7 weeks. The agency quickly implements the laws to get benefits in the hands of Americans as soon as possible. We shouldn't be holding out. While Democrats may want to use scaremongering to score political points, the facts are not on their side. They simply aren't. President Trump did not touch Social Security benefits during his first term. He campaigned on protecting and preserving his Social Security benefits in his first reelect, and his second reelect. In all those campaigns, he has been consistent. And for any member of this body to say otherwise is just saying unfactual representation of President Trump. I now recognize the ranking member from Massachusetts, Mr. Neal, for his opening
Thanks,
statement.
Mr. Chairman. Just before I yield my time, can we all agree that there is nobody 300 years old receiving a Social Security check? Can we also agree that 99.2% of Social Security recipients receive their checks on time? And 72 million Americans receive Social Security, and we're complaining about 1,000 hours of man and woman power? Members of Congress spend a lot of their time making sure those checks are on time. The head of DOGE has said that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme, and the president has not corrected him. I yield the balance of my time to Mr. Larson for his great work on Social Security.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. And asking for Elon Musk to be here. And I know the gentleman's sincere when he says we've got to work together to solve this. We do. So we have a plan. Let's put it out there and have a vote. If you've got a plan, by all means, put it out there. It seems like the person who has a plan is Elon Musk. And that's why we've asked that he come before here to please explain to us what his plan is. I don't see where that is such an astounding thing to ask for in a democracy and in a democratic republic. We have a plan. You disagree with it? That's fine. That's what a democracy is all about. Are there improvements that could be made? Of course, there always are. Are there compromises that could be made? Certainly. But to do nothing and then to stonewall and say that Elon Musk doesn't have to come before us, let's have Martin O'Malley in, the commissioner, so we can actually look at what other federal agency do you know that operates the largest insurance program for under 1% administrative costs, and laying off people that reach out to people, especially in rural areas, and shutting those down so that they can't get the service they need, and then calling Social Security incompetent?
Gentleman's time has expired.
Strongly support this resolution of inquiry, and it is because my constituents are sick with worry at the risk of fraudsters having their Social Security numbers, banking information, and other personal information shared with Musk cronies who've invaded the Social Security Administration. So let's be clear. President Trump and Elon Musk have launched a public campaign against Social Security. Mr. Musk is calling Social Security a Ponzi scheme, and both he and President Trump are spreading widely discredited lies about the program and its integrity. But the facts don't add up. Let me read just a few of the countless news headlines debunking their false claims. The Associated Press says tens of millions of dead people aren't getting Social Security checks despite Trump and Musk claims. ABC News says Musk misreads Social Security data. Millions of dead people are not getting benefits, experts say. CBS News says new Social Security chief refutes claims of deceased people over 100 years old getting checks. The Washington Post says Elon Musk claims of Social Security fraud don't hold up, and here's why. And the New York Times says millions of dead people on Social Security. The agency's own data says otherwise. And in fact, the claims by Elon Musk are based on complete misunderstanding of Social Security's data systems, which often lack complete birth and death information for people born before 1920, before Social Security was established and long before electronic records were kept. A 2023 Inspector General report said that almost none of these people born before 1920 with missing information are paid benefits. But my constituents are also worried because the Trump administration is taking a wrecking ball to the Social Security Administration. Far from making the agency more efficient, they are undermining its ability to serve the public. And why are they trying to destroy the Social Security Administration? It's the first step of a long-standing effort by Republicans to dismantle trust in Social Security and slash benefits. The Trump administration wants to close Social Security offices across the nation and slash the agency's workforce by nearly 1 in 8 employees. Social Security Administration, this administration is already at a 50-year staffing low due to years of underfunding, and it's serving more beneficiaries than ever. How will gutting its workforce help it to serve the American people? Well, the answer is that it doesn't, and in fact, it's very likely a move to undermine confidence so that the Trump administration can privatize it. And with that, I yield back.
Strike the last word.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. You know, when President Trump got elected, he promised to change the status quo and bring accountability to D.C., and that starts with an in-depth review of the agencies, including Social Security, that pay trillions of dollars a year out. DOGE employees are subject to the same legal penalties, and I want to make sure that we are understanding that because we've seen a lot of unsubstantiated charges today, but they are subject to the same legal penalties and fines for improper disclosure of sensitive information as every other Social Security Administrator employee. In fact, the acting commissioner of Social Security affirmatively stated that DOGE personnel cannot make changes to agency systems, benefit payments, or other information. They only have read access. DOGE personnel must follow the law, and if they violate the law, they will be deferred to the Department of Justice for possible persecution. The status quo is no longer acceptable, and Americans voted for change, and President Trump is delivering. In fact, we've heard some complaints today about the level of quality of customer service. I would have them know that I've got great news for my colleagues who requested information about the service provided by Social Security's National 800 number. Not only does the Social Security Administration already publicly post up-to-date information on the performance of that 1-800 number, but including information asked in the ROI, but that information is showing significant improvement since the service delivery lows under the Biden administration. I asked for unanimous consent to submit for the record a chart from the SSA's website showing that the 800 number's average speed of an answer for this fiscal year is 21.6 minutes. This is down, by the way, from 35.8 minutes during the Biden administration. So I would hope that all of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle would be thanking President Trump. But I also want to talk about some of the most egregious and easily provable lie that we've heard on this side. that President Trump wants to get rid of or deduct from Social Security, wants to reduce Social Security. President Trump has promised to increase the efficiency and accountability of Washington's bureaucracy. It is a fact that waste, fraud, and abuse exist at the Social Security Administration. Fact, the Social Security Administration made an estimate of $72 billion in improper payments between 2015 and 2022. It exists. We know that it exists. The Social Security's Office of the Inspector General found that. President Trump has repeatedly stated that he will fight for Social Security. President Trump has repeatedly stated that he will protect Social Security. And President Trump has repeatedly stated that he will not cut Social Security. House Republicans stand with President Trump's commitment to preserving and strengthening Social Security benefits for seniors that they count on. But in addition to that, I don't want to just talk for the president, because we have all heard him say it numerous times, but let the president's words speak for themselves.
Other than this fraud or something, we're going to find it's going to be strengthened, but won't be touched. Medicare, Medicaid, none of that stuff is going to be touched. Nothing. Social Security will not be touched. It'll only be strengthened. I'm not going to touch Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. No, we're going to get fraud out of there. You know, look, Social Security won't be touched. Other than this fraud or something, we're going to.
So I don't know how many times the man has to say it. He has repeated it publicly a number of times. If you go to the White House website, they have it published a number of times. I keep hearing this lie over and over again. They know it's wrong. I would really hope that we could all work and want to have it be more effective, a more efficient program. And that's what we're here to do. And I would hope that I can get my other colleagues on the other side of the aisle to agree with that. And with that, I yield.
Mr. Bean.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much, and a very good afternoon to you. Good afternoon, Ways and Means Committee. We agree. There is something that these two sides that keep going back and forth agree on. The American people are scared and confused, and there's one reason why they are scared and confused about Social Security, because these folks on the left of me keep saying falsely that President Trump and these Republicans want to cut, privatize, or eliminate Social Security. It is simply not true. When you bang your hand on the dais and you raise your voice to scare the American people and confuse them, I don't think it does us any good. Because I'm going to tell you the truth, American people. I don't know what camera to look at if I'm looking directly at the American people. The American people need to know this town, our government, is addicted to spending. They're addicted to spending, and we are an addict of spending. Both parties have abused it. Both parties have overspent. And now our promise to the American people to always give you your money through Social Security is in jeopardy. In 9 years, if we don't make changes in 9 years, 2034, changes will come automatically, and these benefits will be adjusted downward. And that's the last thing that President Trump, this committee, Chairman Smith, Chairman Estes, who showed us last week in a slideshow that's really terrifying, that we have to make changes. So we're gonna have to cut ourselves off. It's like an addict realizing that changes are going to have to be made. We bring in an auditor who points out all of this crazy spending, and because some people can't defend the crazy spending found, their playbook is the only card to play is to blame the auditor. As if we owned a store that was robbed. Elon Musk watches the video and says, here's who stole from you. And then we say, oh my gosh, I can't believe he looked at the videotape. He had no authority to look at the videotape of who robbed me. So people, we have to come together. And I want you to know your words have consequences. You have vilified Elon Musk, who's working for free. He is a government employee, but he's working for free. I've got 2 articles of massive attacks nationwide on Elon Musk's Tesla program at dealerships and And Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I've got a CBS News article, Molotov cocktails, arson, graffiti across the nation, as well as an online edition of Order in Courts of all of the things that are happening to charging stations across the United States. And without objection, I ask that they be entered into the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
So we're addicted to spending. We got to cut ourselves off. Now, I know we keep hearing Elon Musk is unelected. He's unelected. Let me tell you who is unelected. Whoever was using Biden's auto pen for the last 4 years, that is who is unelected. I've heard some history stories this morning. I'm going to give you the history, the real history of the last time we came together to solve problems. Let me tell you who did it. It was, how about this? It was Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich from both sides of the political spectrum came together, and they passed the last balanced budget. And how about this? Bill Clinton did it through the elimination of 428,000 employees, and he did it through $25,000 buyouts. He offered buyouts for federal employees. And so that is the playbook of how we can get it done. Let me tell you, American people, I'm looking at you, and I'm making an honest plea to this committee and everybody watching. If we're going to solve it, maybe we need to go to a room where there's no cameras and we can be honest that we're going broke. We have an addiction to spending. And it's just hard to realize that that can't continue. We're on an unsustainable path. That is the dangerous existential threat to our country. It's just we're spending ourselves into oblivion. So finally, we're realizing we've got a government we can't afford, we've got employees we can't afford, and we are finally right-sizing. I know it hurts. I know it hurts, but if we're going to be the land of the free for our children and grandchildren, then we must make these hard decisions right now. Stand with me, Democrats. Stand with me, Republicans. And let's go forward for the American people. Get this job done for our kids and grandkids. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
A sad morning. Very sad morning. When this committee, the oldest and most continuous in the Congress, neglects its responsibility and essentially holds this hearing today to block any further discussion. The men and women on this committee are good people. They're honest and caring people. And that's why I do not understand why you would relegate this committee to no longer being of significance and resort to saying you will do whatever Elon Musk and Donald Trump tell you to do. Where's the independence of the committee? Where's the legislature? We're an equal branch of government. And you start off with a blather, and yet when we look at the empty seats here, where's Elon Musk? I'm sure he's a genius and is a very credible person because of the wealth he's accumulated. But that does not put him above the law or the responsibility to come before this committee in this Congress. If he's so great, if these plans and all the fraud and abuse that he's found are so eminent, why isn't he here explaining it? You know why. Because he's out to privatize Social Security. He's been on television the last couple of days talking exactly about Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and what he intends to do. Privatize it. The American people, some of them may have been born at night, but not last night. People are aware of this. Every single one of your districts, all the money that comes in monthly, and you have not done, you as a Congress, have not done anything in more than 54 years. And now you have someone coming in to privatize a system, something you have longed to do going back to 1982, because Elon Musk thinks that this is the best thing to do. President Trump has called Social Security a scam. Elon Musk, as Mr. Neal said, called it a Ponzi scheme. Ask that of the people in your district. Ask that, Mr. Smith, of the more than 198,000 people in your district who rely on Social Security, and you won't even let the person who's planning to privatize it, who's telling the big lie in front of everyone, in bold as he possibly can, saying, this is what we're going to do. The Congress is in our back pocket. We don't even have to come before them and testify because we control the House, we control the Senate, and we control the presidency. And it's the tyranny of the executive. It's why these resolutions were first adopted back in 1789, because the founding fathers knew that the executive branch does not have total authority over the legislature unless you have a willing party that says, no, we're going to do exactly what you tell us to do, Mr. Musk and Mr. President. It doesn't matter to our constituents. It doesn't matter how much money they are not going to receive. We're not even going to tell them the truth about what's going to happen to them. And every single one of these districts where they're being shut down and their personnel, and as Mr. Neal said, then after you cut and eliminate the people, say the agency isn't responding accordingly. No other agency operates for under less than 1%. With that, they administer to over 70 million people in the nation's #1 anti-poverty program for the elderly and children. Shame! Shame! Can't bring people in front of this body. If he's right, if they're so good, if they're so just, why aren't they here telling the American people about it? They're not, because you know the truth. It's about privatization. I yield back.
No time to yield. Mr. Arrington?
I can hardly sit here. I was hoping to just let my Democrat colleagues sound off this morning, get through their one-act plays, but I can't. I can't sit here and listen to this grandstanding. They wear their armor of indignation proudly, but we know what's underneath that. And I hate to question the motives of my colleagues, but this is we have touched a nerve, Mr. Chairman, and we have entered the inner sanctum of the Democrats' temple. And I think that holy grail is the government and their unionized government employees. And if you get anywhere near it, this is the reaction you're going to get. My friend said they didn't vote for these things. They didn't vote for this deep cleaning in the bureaucracy. They didn't vote for the kind of rooting out of waste and fraud. But they say that with a false narrative and with fear-mongering for Medicaid beneficiaries, and they try to scare, no, sir, I got to finish this. They're trying to scare our seniors and scare the most vulnerable. That's a long-standing tactic. But the American people didn't vote for transgender operas in Colombia. But where's the indignation on that? I haven't heard a single person talk about that. What about the transgender comic books and the DEI musicals in Ireland and all this absurd and insulting example after example of just complete and utter wasting the taxpayer dollar? The GAO, the Government Accountability Office, that's a government entity, so you ought to bow down to that authority as well and accept it hook, line, and sinker for their data and statement on fraud, which is up to $5 trillion over the 10-year window. $5 trillion. Where is the outrage on all of that? I've never heard it, not one time. This is, I hear about the unelected billionaires because you all love class warfare. You love to divide people by race and gender and class. That is the MO.
I mean, God, I love you guys as people, but your party's broken and bankrupt, and that's why the taxpayers put this president in office and gave us unilateral, unified Republican leadership, because they want us to make sure that their tax dollars are protected and that they're being spent wisely, and that we act as fiduciaries, and that the people who were intended to get benefits from these programs are getting them, but not illegal immigrants and not people that are not qualified. I see the list you're holding up. Enough with the theater. Where is the outrage? Are you not insulted by this list? You want me to read this list? You want me to go through the same list of indigenous people, inclusive justice, primary literacy, female empowerment, personalized 3D avatar tools for gender identities? This is stupid. Mr. Chairman, reclaiming my time.
You got your time.
Where was the concern for conflicts of interest and abuse of power when the IRS leadership and the special prosecutors from the Biden DOJ were obstructing the investigation into the Hunter Biden scheme? And your president said, I don't know anything about it, never been involved. And we knew that wasn't true, and we discovered it wasn't. But where was the drive and the passion that I see from you, all my colleagues, on that issue and the transparency or lack thereof for the last 2 or 3 years? I never see this until we're talking about the tip-to-tail audit of the federal government to root out wasteful spending and act as fiduciaries on behalf of the taxpayers. It's unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable, but I think it's on such display today that the American people in their good judgment are reading right through it, just like I am. And again, if you want to wander in the wilderness for 40 years, you're making a good case to do that to the American people. They're on our side on this issue. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Mr. Smucker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's fascinating this morning to hear the feigned outrage of Democrats today. It's as if they haven't heard the message of this previous election, like it never occurred. I can tell you, in my district, what the American people wanted was to prioritize America, prioritize the American people over the bureaucracy, over the massive federal government. Do you know today that government spending is over 1/3 of GDP? This is what the Democrats are defending. Over 3 million employees in the federal government alone, not including state and local. And the fallacies that have been brought up here today, Social Security being privatized, no one has mentioned that. In fact, the president has said he wants to protect Social Security. Look at his record in his first 4 years. No, that I will not yield. Look at his record in the first 4 years. He did nothing to change Social Security in any way. And he said multiple times he's going to protect Social Security, going to protect Medicare. And I can tell you, every Republican on this side of the aisle believes and agrees that we should protect the vulnerable among us. We should protect those programs for individuals who truly need them, who have been paying into the system. So it's bizarre. It's outrageous, the kind of things that they've been saying. Now, let's talk a little bit about Musk. And Mr. Larson in particular knows that Social Security will be bankrupt in 9 years or 10 years. At that point, no, I'm not going to yield. You had your time. You had your time. Will be in 9 or 10 years, projections show that what is owed in Social Security will be more than we're taking in. So you ought to be extremely happy if we're finding waste in the system, Because every dollar of waste in Social Security, in Medicare, in every other program, every dollar of waste and fraud is a dollar that is available to the people, to the recipients who deserve that service. So, you know, many presidents have tried this. We've seen under the Clinton years, they trimmed back the federal workforce. Nixon talked about it. But this is finally a president who's willing to take on the bureaucracy and really make a difference. 3 million employees. You don't think that we can find some ways to trim? And you know, we've heard reports here, there's waste all over the place, there's fraud. And what Mr. Musk is finding could impact our deficit in a big way. The American people know that we're bankrupt. The American people know we're bankrupt. Just think of this. This year, we're spending $7 trillion and we're taking in $5 trillion. You're all voting you're arguing to keep that. If we don't change our course, we're going to see a sovereign debt crisis, and every American is going to be impacted.
Will the gentleman yield?
No, I'm not going to yield.
You voted to
you have
yesterday.
You'll have your time. I'm not yielding. We will have a sovereign debt crisis if we don't change course. And where we should start is exactly what the president is doing. Root out every bit of waste and fraud that we can find. That's where we should start. It might make an amazing difference. This is why, by the way, I think you're on the wrong side of this. I think the American people are going to see the kind of waste and fraud. They support this. Why do you think today the majority of the American people support what Elon Musk is doing? Why do you think today the majority of the American people support what the president is doing? And one other thing. You keep talking about him. He should be right here. You can follow what he's doing. He's doing interviews. He's got DOGE.gov. He's uncovering what he's doing. This is not someone who is doing this in the dark. He's being very open about what is happening. So, again, I think you're on the wrong side of this. The American people side with us today. They sided with us in this previous election, and you keep this up, they're going to be siding with us with many elections to come. I yield back.
Thank you. I will make sure that whenever we give 5 minutes to each member, it's honored without disruption. When a member says they do not yield, do not continue to go after the member and try to take away their time. Ms. Chu.